I started my period at the age of 13. Nobody ever told me that it would be accompanied with such great pain. Mommy and mom had told me that, they'd seen women and young girls suffer in pain due to menstruation, but not the kind of pain they had seen me battle, not the kind of pain they had seen me struggle with. At age of 15, mom and mommy decided to take me to the gynecologist. And the gynecologist said, whatever Njambi is going through is very normal, and the pain will go away once she gets a child. And I was like, when am I going to get a child? Like, okay, I'm 15, so when do I get a child? And I mean, first of all, here's mommy, I need to go to uni. My mom is like, yeah, you gotta go to uni. Yeah, so you're not getting a child, and a baby is not a pill. So yeah, so I grew up knowing it was normal, and that coupled with an identity crisis, high school was rough. Rough, extremely rough. And the pain was worse. And I had no clue, I had no idea what this was. And I graduated from high school and I made it to university. My years at Daystar University were brutal. The pain was immense. I graduated from Daystar and later on joined different media houses, and my health was deteriorating. I was getting worse by the day. So I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And endometriosis is a disease where tissue that normally lines the uterus grows outside of the uterus. It's a very painful disease, tremendous, I call it apocalyptic pain. And one of the major symptoms is painful periods that I've battled for the last 21 years. And I remember one very vivid moment when I was reading news on TV. I was a news anchor around 2013, and this was one of the biggest highlights of my life when mommy and mom, would go to the market and they would ask people to be watching KBC because I was anchoring news on KBC, and everybody was now finally watching KBC because I was reading the news. And I would get on, and I would say, good evening and welcome to KBC News. I'm Njambi koikai. And I would be speaking this to my grandmother, even though she never spoke a word in English, she never understood a word in English. And I would go back home, and I would find her sitting there telling me, nyonaga ta muratuona mwi haria TV-ini, ni mutuonaga tondu ona nguriaga irio ndatiga kuria so nguona ta muratuona. And she said, she said, it's like, I feel like you people see us when you're reading the news. I was even eating, I had to stop eating because I felt like you were really looking at me, so I stopped. And she was very proud of me. And I had to stop reading news because the endometriosis was sporadically spreading all over my body. In 2016, there was a major retrenchment at a private media house I was working in, and I lost my job. And I came back home to find mommy extremely sick. 2 weeks later, mommy was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. It broke my heart to see mommy silent, weak. My biggest life coach, who is now the weakest, she'd lost that fire, she'd lost that mojo. And the cancer was spreading. And she became senile. Mommy couldn't make a proper sentence, mommy couldn't speak. And so, the journey to fighting for mommy began. My mom, my sister, and I fought for mommy because mommy had taught us to fight for what we believed in. And we believed and loved mommy very much. We fought for her. We borrowed, we fundraised. And in March 2016, mommy asked us to let her go. She said, I have seen what all of you have done for me. In one of those rare moments when she could speak and we could actually hear we could make out what she was saying. She said, I have seen what you all have done for me. You have fought for me, but it's time to let me go. And mommy died in my mother's arms. Later on, after we buried mommy, I went back to USIU to complete my 3rd degree that mommy had kept on pushing me to complete. And she said, you must finish. And you must fight through it. And at this point in my life, I was like, is it really necessary for me to do this? I don't really know if I want to do this. I'm not sure. And my mother reminded me, and she said, remember what mommy said, you must finish and you must fight. And these words kept on ringing in my mind, that I must finish and I must fight. I went back to USIU, and after 8 years, I graduated with collapsed lungs with my 3rd degree. I had no idea what I was going through. And so this also was the beginning of a long medical journey for Njambi koikai. I was finally diagnosed with thoracic endometriosis adenomyosis stage 4 by my gynecologist, Dr. Praful Patel, and my cardiothoracic surgeon, Dr. Morris Muhinga. And in the words of Dr. Praful Patel, who looked at me straight in the eye and said, Njambi koikai, you need to leave this country as soon as possible, because there's absolutely no doctor, no specialist in this country, not in this continent, who could help you or who could solve this problem. And I said to myself, what is this? What is thoracic endometriosis? What is endometriosis? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? How am I going to do this? We have no money. You know, we've just come from a medical issue, and now here I am with this grave disease. And the cost of treatment was out of this world. We had spent all our funds on my education, on my treatment. There was absolutely no way we were going to raise the much needed funds. Mommy's words came ringing. I said, you must fight. You must fight. And this was the fight of my life. So I called my musician friends in the industry, and we organized major concerts. Strangers came through to help with the logistics, with the planning, with the organizing, and everything that went through. My friends in the media came through with the interviews and the promos and the posters and everything in terms of marketing and advertising. And my friend Gilad, he also came and performed, and it was such a magical experience. I was 36 kilograms, and by the time I was being diagnosed by Dr. Praful Patel, I had gone through 18 surgeries. To be scared, I was not. I felt Mommy's words in spirit. I would always see her in my face, like, you're fight. My mom was scared. My mom had seen it all, her mother and now her daughter. And I was like, I have to do this for Mommy, and I have to do this for Mom and for myself and for my sister. We raised the much needed amount. And in March 2018, we finally arrived at the Center for Endometriosis Care in Atlanta, Georgia, under the care of Dr. Ken Sinavo and Dr. John Goldman. I went through the first major surgery, March 1st, 2018, and I was later placed under isolation for over a month. And then I developed complications, and I went through another surgery. And in 2019, January of 2019, we were planning to come home, and I developed major complications in my right lung, and I had to go through another surgery. This was it. I was tired. This is surgery number 21. I am tired. I have gone through it. I was tired. And I was like, God, I've fought, and I've fought, and I've fought. And it doesn't seem like it's getting better. Throughout this whole ordeal, I never cried. This was the first time I cried. And I cried not because of the pain. I cried because this process was not ending. And I was mentally out of it. And so we went in through the surgery, and I was taken to the operating room, and they put in a tube, as they would normally do, to drain out the fluid in my lungs. And after 2 hours, the nurse came back and said, we have to take you back to the operating room, Njambi, because the tube that was fitted was not big enough. So I was taken back. And all this time, by the way, I can feel everything, eh? I can feel everything. So I was taken back. They put back the tube. And this tube was put back for a process known as pleurodesis, whereby they inject medication to create a buffer zone between your lung and your diaphragm so that your lungs can stay expanded. I've gone through this process about 5 times. And this time, it was very strange, it was very horrific, it was something I'd never experienced in my life. And so as they were pushing in the medication, it started spilling over to my nasal airways, and I started choking and burning. And I could feel oxygen just leave my body. And I knew this was it. I knew this was it. I had fought, and yeah, Njambi had fought the good fight. So I could feel my limbs get weak. I could feel my legs starting to wobble on the bed. And yeah, Njambi koikai was done. But I opened my eyes somehow through that whole process, and I saw my mom's hands on her head, and she was crying, screaming, wailing, looking at her daughter, almost losing her life. and the nurses pushing her away and pulling her out of that room so that they could attend to me as the machines were almost flatlining. And I knew I had to fight. If for anything, I had to fight for Mom. If for anything, I had to fight for Barbara. If for anything, I had to fight for me. And I tried. And I could hear the nurses saying, Njambi, breathe, 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 breathe. And I tried, and I'm trying to get, I'm trying to get to catch my breath through that whole burning sensation of medicine and chemicals in my body. And I'm trying, and finally, God gave me the courage, and I could feel a sense of calm, and I could breathe, and I just felt that medication dissolving. Of course, they had taken my vitals. My blood pressure had shot up. My oxygen levels were wanting, they were fluctuating. And finally, I came to. And just to see me fighting for my life and come back was very traumatic, but also very inspiring that, we can always come back from anything. For those who love reggae, anybody love reggae? Yeah. So if you love reggae music, somebody say, Ra. Wicked. There you go. So I'm known as Fayah Mama Njambi Koikai and Fayah Mama Njambi. So if you walk into any of Kenya's biggest ghettos and you say you know Fayah Mama Njambi, street cred. They're like, yeah, you got your street cred. So in February 2020, 15th, I walked into KICC during the Long Walk to Freedom Buju Banton concert, one of the most anticipated concerts in Kenya. And this was my comeback concert, and I walked in there, and I could just feel the energy. It was reminiscent of old days when I would walk into concerts and just see my good friends, people I love, people I grew up with, people I relate with, people who relate with the struggle like I do, people who appreciate reggae music and people who sing reggae word for word. And I was back in that space. And I walked in, I looked at the stage and I was like, this is it. And I walked across, up and down, just speaking. And I could feel the energy, I could feel the vibe, I could feel the music, I could feel the love, I could feel the cheers. And I was like, this is it, this is home, this is reggae, these are my people. And I was back. And I was back. And I was back. And I appreciate the love that has constantly been shown to me by my fans. I appreciate the love that has constantly been shown to me by strangers. I appreciate my family, my mom, my sister. And this is a tribute to my mother, my sister, and the late, great Mami. To the biggest fight coach that I ever had, Mami. This is a great tribute to her, Mary Njambi. I love you, and rest in peace. We miss you, Sana. To the prayer warriors who have consistently stood in the gap, to strangers who've helped me, to my friends, to a circle of friends, and the whole nation of Kenya that came together in the diaspora as well, I say thank you. Now, endometriosis is a disease that affects 1 in 10 women. We must fight for women. We must stand for women. We must fight for little girls and women. Thank you very much.